Hello everyone, welcome to Easel Live. This is our second time trying this little experiment, so thank you to people who have come back to try and learn some more from us, and welcome to all the new Easel users out there. Hopefully you take something away from this session that you enjoy. My name is Mo, I work in the Customer Success Department here at Venables, and today, I'm not sure if you've seen the emails, but we are working on some holiday ornaments. I'm one of those overly big fans of Christmas, as evidenced by my Christmas sweater that I had to break out for the occasion today. So today we're going to be working on some ornaments, and we'll also be going over a couple things in Easel that are ways of thinking about operating in sort of a 3D space. It's that 3D visualization can be really hard to do in a 2D platform. So we're hoping that in this tutorial, you'll be able to learn a little bit about how to get your things that you're visualizing in place for an actual 3D carve. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you some of the ornaments that we've already carved out. We have a couple samples here that we've carved out here in the office. This one is for Scott. It's got a little guitar on it made out of our glitter acrylic, and it's you know, a little bit of everything. It's got his name, shows something that he really cares about. That's really important when you're doing a personal project. My friend Sam also carved out this one for her mom, Camille. And Camille kind of has this cool little flare going on to it. Very nice, nice touch with the glitter as well. And we've also got a few other samples back here. This one is using our Voronoi app, which we can show you how to locate the apps in Easel so you can get that going as well. So let me go ahead and show you how you can access some of our projects, and that is where you will find the Easel template. I've also added the link down below in the bottom part of this video, so you can go ahead and click there if you want to go ahead and follow along. So bear with me a minute here while I get you here to the Inventables website. So here we are at Inventables. I've gone and clicked on this projects tab up here. So that is how you can get in to see all of our projects. We're quite fortunate in this situation because we have this ornament template is already set up here. So you can click into holiday decoration, and if you click on this ornament template, that is how you can locate the template that we're going to be using today. This was made by my friend Sam. You can see there's a couple pictures of the ornaments that I've shown you here today, just showing how different people have used this ornament to how they've used this template to create a whole variety of ornaments. So hopefully by the end of the day, you'll be able to know how to make not only a template, but also know how to make your own project in Easel. So I'm going to go ahead and start by opening up this project in Easel. And now you can see the template that I have here. So this is going to be what I use to design the project that I will be working on today. And we're going to start off pretty simple here, just to give people a quick overview on how this would work. So whenever you open up a project on the Inventables website, it's important that you make a copy of that project. You'll see if I try to go up here to carve, I'm actually getting a notification that says, hey, you need to make a copy of the project in order to use this. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and click on this to make a copy. You can also always go in here into File and make a copy. That's a really great way if you're currently working on a project and you want to make a change, but you don't want to lose the work you've already done. That's another good way to use the copy feature. So now I've made a copy. You can see now I can edit this file here. I'm going to close the original. And we're going to start off really simple just to kind of get our feet wet. And I'm going to go in here to the icons. And I know that there's a Christmas tree icon in here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. Just make a really simple ornament here with a tree. So first I got to make sure that everything is set to a fill. That'll just help me visualize my final project a little bit better. So let's say I want to put this ornament, this tree in the ornament. Well, this is where it gets a little bit tricky visualizing what your final project is going to look like. So in order to make this a little bit easier to understand, we have actually done some cutouts that I'm going to share with you right now that kind of help visualize how to figure out what your final project is going to look like. So here's my ornament, right? This is the template that we were just working with. And I want to make a tree inside this ornament so that when the ornament is done and I hang it on my tree, there's that little tree icon in the middle. So here's a little tree, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. The problem that I'm going to face is when this carves out, you can see this black that surrounds the tree entirely, which means even though this ornament is cut out, the little tree will also be cut out and it will not be attached to the template. So what I have to do is I have to find a way to connect all my elements that I want to stay inside the ornament, have to find a way to connect them to the template itself. So I could do a little tree down here, right? I could connect the bottom part of the tree to the template so that they overlap. That way when it carves out, I will be left with the tree inside the template. An alternative that I think would be a little bit more eye appealing is I can put a bigger tree inside the template. And by doing that, I can make sure that there are different parts of the tree touching the edges of the ornament. And so that way the tree will stay suspended in that space on the template. So it's really important that when we're working on these ornaments that you always think about how everything in your piece is going to be connected, because there's nothing worse than carving something out and then realizing that it's not going to work because something wasn't connected to the right part. So let's go back into Easel. We'll get situated over here. And we'll take another look at our tree ornament and see what we can do to make this project a little bit more cohesive. So as I talked about, I could find a way to just attach the tree down here. And this 3D editor shows a really good example of what that's going to look like. Or I can expand the tree and make it fill up the whole space. And by doing that, I've got the tree now in between the ornament, which is really nice. So I could do this. This is a really great looking ornament. It's really good for just a basic shape just to get started. However, I really wanted to make my ornaments personalized this year. And so my brother, his name is Jeff, and I love him to death. He's my little baby brother, apparently a lot smarter than I am because he just graduated from podiatry school and he is now an official doctor. So I wanted to make an ornament for him that has his name in it, has a little foot because, you know, foot doctors love things with feet on them. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and start working on a project for him. So one idea that I had was to put a foot in the ornament here and maybe add his name in it too, just so it shows off like Dr. Stike. So I'm gonna go into the import page. Some of you who were working with us last time remember that we used this image trace feature. If you have any questions about image trace, you can always check out the Easel Live video that we had done 2 weeks ago, or you can go to our support center and there's a tutorial about how to use image trace for your projects. So I'm gonna click upload file here. And you can see there's a lot of different places here on the left how you can import images into the project. So I'm gonna go to web images and I'm just gonna do a quick search for a foot. So I'm going to search for foot vector. Vectors are objects that tend to render more in black and white, which is really important when you're using Easel because that's gonna give you a clear contrast. Contrast is really important when you're importing images because that helps Easel know what to carve and what not to carve. So I'm gonna import my feet. And one thing I always like to do when I'm importing an image is I always like to bump the smoothing up a lot. This way, my bit doesn't get stuck in any rough edges and everything stays nice and smooth. Plus everyone likes smooth feet, so it's important in this particular project to make sure the feet are nice and smooth. You can also see there was a bit of a watermark on this one, but I can remove that by just adding my threshold. The threshold basically helps determine what areas to keep gray and what areas to knock out in white. So by increasing the threshold, I can increase that contrast and get that to work out. So now I'm gonna import my feet. There they are. And since I only want one, I'm gonna go ahead and select one and delete it. So now I've got my foot, and similar to my Christmas tree example that we walked through, I'm gonna make sure the foot is inside the entire template. Like that. That looks pretty good. You can see it's touching on both the top and the bottom, so it's gonna be nice and secure inside that template. And that's a pretty good ornament, but it doesn't really go for that personal effect that I was really hoping for. So one thing I'm gonna do is add in the words Dr. Stike. You can add text in Easel. We have this text file up here, this text menu. We have lots of fonts that you can choose from. Some work better than others. I don't think my brother would be a big fan of Lavenderia. I think that I'm probably gonna stick with something a little more basic for him since he is a boy. And I'm gonna use this font here, import the text, and first I'm just gonna start off by saying the word Stike. That's my last name. I know it doesn't look like it says Stike, but I promise you that's how it's pronounced. So in order to make sure that this carves out correctly, I wanna try and put this text to the right of my foot, so it kind of is suspended in this space, because I think that's kind of a nice touch for an ornament. But one thing to consider is I've still got that issue where these pieces are not connected. Let's see if I can zoom in this here. I think you'll be able to see it a little bit better. What's gonna happen is if I try to carve this out, all these letters that aren't touching are gonna fall out. The C especially, it'll carve out, but it won't be connected to the entire ornament itself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the Exploder app. And that is an app here in our apps menu. You can go into here. It's called Exploder. It does things almost as cool as you would hope it would do with a name like that. And what it does is it allows you to take a shape and break apart the pieces into individual components. And it also allows you to change the spacing between them. See how I can move the way the shapes interact with each other? The slider is a little bit tricky to use, but what we found is if you click on this, you can use the up and down arrows on your keyboard to get that to move. Of course, mine is not working now. It always happens. Must be something going on with the stream. So we're just gonna take a gander here and try and get these as closely connected as we can. Let's go with something like that. Maybe a little bit more just to be on the safe side. Cool, so now I can see my T and my S are connected and my YCH are connected as well. I'm gonna back it up just a little bit to give a little more definition to some of those shapes. Now I'm gonna go ahead and import that text. I've got that down here. Now, since these are still individual components, even though they are connected together, I'm gonna go ahead and do Edit, Combine. And now that I have my text all combined, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that one since I won't need it anymore. And since I'm combining these shapes, I'm gonna also combine this foot with the outline, just so we're not seeing so many different colors. I'm gonna go ahead and combine that as well. So now we can see how everything is connected with the foot. Now I've got my text here that I'm gonna connect as well. So I'm gonna make sure that this whole thing, I think actually I'm also gonna bring this to the front so it's a little bit easier to see the connections. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure this stretches across the whole span of this space and that it stays connected in a certain points to the foot and the outside of the edge here, just to make sure that nothing is gonna fall apart when I go ahead and try to carve this out. So that's looking pretty good. I think that what I will try to do now, since that all looks connected, this piece here is a little bit close, but I'll show you at the end why I'm not as concerned about that. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but from what I can see right now, everything looks like it's gonna carve out really well. But also, one thing I wanted to try to do with this particular project is add the word doctor. And I could probably add doctor up here, but doctor is a little bit tricky because I wanna add that, the DR period. And the period is a really hard shape to carve out and have it suspended in an open space like this because I worry that it might fall out. So what I'm gonna try and do instead is put the doctor text on top of the foot so that the foot is carved out and then the doctor part is see-through. I'm gonna try and show you an example of what I'm talking about by showing an ornament that my colleague made. And she made this ornament for her dog, Chazzy. There's Chazzy. And so what she had done here is she put this banner which is similar to how I'm doing my foot. And then she carved Chazzy's name out of the banner. So you can see how Chazzy the dog is up here. And then we have the text down here that she added. This is like my word stike that I had done. And then this font here is the part that's knocked out of the banner. So that's what we're gonna try and do now with mine. So let's go back to the project and see if we can go ahead and get that done. So we'll pull up the project. I'm gonna go ahead and add in that doctor text now. I'll use the same font just for cohesion of my design. And I'll add the doctor. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use the Exploder app again. I'm gonna use it for a different reason this time than I did the stike. So rather than try to keep all the pieces close together as I did here, because I'm knocking them out of the foot, I wanna give them a little bit more space in between each letter so that the parts that are connecting, the parts that are between the letters are a little bit thicker and they don't break after the foot is carved out. So for that, I'm gonna go back into apps. I'm gonna use the Exploder app. And this time I'm gonna try to, oh look, now my arrows work, yay. I'm gonna try and break up the space between these. So I'm just using the arrows on my keyboard to change the spacing between the letters. So I'm gonna give them a little bit of a cushion so that they can be separated on that foot element. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this right on top here. But one thing that's important to make sure, because I'm doing this, is I want this to carve out of the foot. Remember from one of our previous projects, whenever you want to carve an element out of another element, it's important to make sure that that element is in white. So what the white is going to do for this visualization is show me that this part is going to be a space in that foot. So kind of to help visualize this, because you can see that I'm already going to have a few problems with the way that this doctor is on this foot, right? Because I have these elements in between the D and the R that really help give those letters their shape. Those are going to fall out when I carve this. Think of the outside of the foot like the ornament template, and this shape is now like the tree that I was trying to put in between it. So right now these elements are not connected to the part of the foot that I need in order to have it stay in place. And I know, again, this is kind of one of those things that's a little bit tricky to understand. So what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try and show you how to visualize this in with our little paper templates back here again. So here we have the letter A. And normally the letter A, right? If I were to not include the stencil element that I'm about to show you, I would carve out an A in a shape and it would look like this. Well, that's a little bit not too A looking to me. So I need to make sure that I keep this part inside the shape so I really get that full look of what that looks like. So what I have to do in this situation is I need to create a little stencil. This is just a little shape that we use in Easel to help mask over the parts that we want to keep. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and use that to suspend the center part of the A in place. So now you can see, it's a little crooked. Now you can see when that's going to carve out. Yes, I do have that little bit of a stencil element, but I also am able to keep the distinguishing part of what makes an A look like an A. So that's really important to do when you're thinking about these ornaments and you're looking at carving something out of a space like this. It's important to look for those parts of letters that you might want to keep suspended in space. So let's take a look back and I will show you what I decided to do with my doctor in the foot. So just zoom out here so you guys can take a look at what's going on in the 3D preview. So with this, I'm just gonna make a little shape that will allow me, I can probably delete that, can't I? There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and make another little shape here that I'm just gonna use as a stencil. Again, I'm just using the square element, adding in that shape. And now I'm gonna zoom in here pretty close just to get a look at what's going on. It doesn't have to be very big, but I do want to make sure that it's sturdy and that it's able to connect those pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and place this here. And all it really needs to show is that this piece is somehow connected to this piece. It might help if I make this the same, similar color so you guys can visualize that a little bit more. So I'm also going to do the same thing over here with the D. I'm just going to add one of those little tabs over here. And just to be on the safe side with the D, since it's a little bit larger shape, I'm going to go ahead and add a second one down at the bottom. I just don't want to make I want to make sure that piece doesn't fall out. Okay, so what's going to happen when I combine this is that this is all going to become one shape. So rather than have all these little elements be separate, we're going to combine it. One way to think about the combine tool is to think about it in a weird way, to think about it like tape. So when we were using these templates here, the way we're trying to combine all these pieces are just with little pieces of Scotch tape. And the Scotch tape is a really good way to conceptualize how the combine tool works in Easel. So I'm essentially combining these elements together by using tape, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in Easel too. You can also remember when I was doing the tree and the foot originally, the tape that holds this tree in place is also using the combine tool. So by using the combine tool, I'm able to take separate elements and make sure that they all become one. One thing to keep in mind when you use the combine tool is that it will make all of your shapes the same depth. So if you're looking to have shapes be different depths, I would advise you to consider maybe combining only the parts that you want to be the same depth. So in this case, I'm not worried about depth because I'm just going to use, an 1/8 inch piece of material and it's all going to be the same depth. But if I were to do some kind of 3-dimensional shape on the ornament, that would be something I would want to keep in mind when combining shapes. So I'm going to go back to my ornament and take a look here at what else we can do to this project. All right, I'm going to go ahead now. I've got everything in place. I'm going to go ahead and combine all these elements together so that they don't move and they don't separate. All right, so there it is. There's my ornament. And you can see everything stuck together, so now I can move this around and nothing separates out. But if you've used Easel before, you'll probably realize that there's something a little bit strange about this ornament, which is that it's completely in a negative space, which means this ornament is actually not going to cut out at all. It's actually going to be the inverse of the shape that I want. Anytime in Easel you see material left, that's going to be what your project is left with. But what we've found is that in building these ornaments, it's much easier to conceptualize your final product by paying attention to this 2D editor. And by looking at this, it's really easy to see what your final project is going to look like. However, in Easel, anything that is black is going to actually be a toolpath that your machine takes. So you can see if I do this, what's actually going to happen on my machine is that it's going to carve out my project, which is not what I want at all. I don't need a piece of wood with an ornament shape carved out of it. I want the ornament itself to be loose from that material so I can hang it on my tree. So how do I fix that? We have gone ahead and built the project this way is really just to show you all how to think about building 3D objects in a 2-dimensional space. But for carving, I'm going to have to do something a little bit different. And I'm going to have to convert this entire project to being an outline. Now you can sort of see what happened is that the machine is going to cut these parts out, and this spot here, which is not something I want to keep, is going to fall out of my final design. Same with this spot here, is going to carve out of my final design. My ornament itself, you can see how all the pieces are connected, so that's good. That's what I want in my final shape. And now when it finishes carving, I'll be able to go ahead and plop out this entire element and take that with me as I go. But you can see some of these toolpaths are a little bit strange, and it kind of messes up my design. Remember that part I was talking about with my T and my Y touching? That's going to stay disconnected with the way I currently have these outlines set up. So with the outline feature, there are a few different ways that you can use this. The first thing that I want to do, though, is I want to remove tabs. Tabs, basically, when you cut a project out, tabs are these little elements, as indicated by these yellow circles, these yellow parts, that keep the parts of your project suspended to the stock material. But in this case, when I carve out these projects, I'm going to keep everything taped down with double stick tape. We have a video up on YouTube that shows a little bit about that process of how to apply double stick tape and mount and clamp your material in the Carvey or on the X-Carve. It might be worth taking a look at that if you need some more help on how to use double stick tape to suspend those things in. And so in this case, I don't really want to do a lot of cleanup. It's kind of an intricate project as it is. So I went ahead and I removed the tabs from my design. If you're interested in learning more about tabs, again, I advise you to visit the support center on our website. You can search for tabs, and we have an article that kind of addresses tabs and how to use them and how to change them in your project. So the other thing that I'd like to do is talk about these bit sizes here. You can see that one of the other problems I have with my design is my bit might be just a little bit too wide to get some of these elements to carve out correctly. So I happen to have a 16th inch bit here in the office. I'm going to go ahead and use that instead. You can see I have a lot less errors now with my project, which is really good. And the cuts are a little bit cleaner and everything sticks together a little bit better. But the other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to adjust my outline toolpath. What these toolpaths do is it shows you, based on the design you have, how the toolpaths will be generated to carve it out. Right now, I have it set to be on path, which means that every line that I had on my design is going to be cut out by the bit directly on the path of the project. However, I would like to keep the same shape that I had. By cutting out on the path, I'm not actually getting the full realization, I'll just back up a second here. I'm not actually going to get this full design because by cutting on the path, I'm actually eliminating, I'm cutting on this edge, which means that my design is actually shrinking just a little bit by the diameter of the bit. So instead, I'm going to try to switch it to inside. Well, inside doesn't work either because now my toolpath is being put inside the design element. So that's not going to work for me either. What I want to make sure that I do in this case is I'm going to have everything go to outside. By setting my toolpath to be outside, all the elements are going to be the exact same shape and size that I had them when I was visualizing it with the black visualization before. So everything is now the exact same size. You can see by looking here at the 2D preview or the 3D preview that my T and my Y are sticking together again. So that's good news. And I can still remove all these elements that I don't need. So this part will fall out, this will fall out, there's little spaces between the S will fall out, but in spite of all that, it might be easier to simulate this. You can see that the doctor part of my design will stay. I'll still have those parts that give the letters their definition, and I will be able to have that part carved out of the foot itself. Maybe I'll just change this really quick to show that visualization a little bit more. All right, so that is going to be what my final ornament looks like. And you can see my carving time is only about 32 minutes, which is much better than when I had it before at the filled in shape when it was about 2.5 hours or something. So the outlines are a really good way to cut out your shape without having to carve out all the spaces that you don't want to keep. So for instance, I could make this space here black, right? And that would tell me, okay, that space is going to be carved out. I won't need it, but it's going to take a lot of time to fully carve this space out. What I've done instead is use the outline feature to create a space and a shape that will be disconnected from the rest of my project. So when I remove my project from the machine, this part will no longer be attached to the part that I want to keep. So, one second here. It might be easier too, since it is the holiday spirit, to show what this might look like when a couple different colors. This is a good example of showing it with the acrylic, because acrylic is a common material that we use in all of our ornaments. And we were able to get acrylic to work really well for all the projects we did. All the examples that I showed you were cut out of our glitter acrylic, our cast acrylic that we sell in our store. And we have plenty of that. We also have a holiday bundle, if you're interested in purchasing that we have going on right now, that's full of a bunch of different colors. Good for the holiday season, super festive, and definitely worth checking out if you're thinking about doing some holiday projects. So I think maybe what I'll do is, I think I'll just change this back to acrylic just to show a couple more things here. The one thing that I always struggle with doing whenever I make a new project is making sure that I've set up my material and everything else about my project to be correct from the start. Because you can see my material thickness over here, my Z material thickness, which is the depth, is still set to 0.5 inches. However, trying to hang an ornament on my tree that is a 1/2 inch thick might not go over so well. So I want to make sure that this material is much thinner. And in this case, I went ahead and I used an 1/8 inch piece of acrylic to carve out my shape. So got that all set now. And you can see this is set to carve all the way through. And I don't have my tabs selected. And my project looks like it's ready to carve. You'll also see when I hit simulate that now my carving time is only 7 minutes, which means were there 30 Dr. Stykes in my family, I could cut out a lot of ornaments for everybody and they'd all be super impressed, I'm sure. So that there is a little bit about how to build an ornament using our template that we provided to you. I'm going to go ahead and show you one more thing here in Easel before we go today. In the meantime, for those of you joining us live, I'm sure you've noticed the chat feature on the side of the window. Hopefully you're using that to ask some questions. If there's anything that you'd like me to address on air, if there's anything I covered that isn't super clear, I know this is kind of hard from a conceptual standpoint. If there's anything that you want me to clarify in the air, please let me know. Just go ahead and add it to the chat, and my friends Paul and Sam will go ahead and get that information to me, and I'll be able to address that at the end. If you have any other questions, you can just feel free to throw those in and I'll try to address them on air if possible. If not, I'm sure that they will be able to get to those to you in the chat right now. So what I'm going to show you really quickly, since yes, it's great if you want to make a circle ornament, but if you want to make an ornament of a different shape or start with a different template, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to do that first. So the circle ornament, the template that we provide is great if you're looking for just something to get started, but if you want to try and do something your own shape, I want to show you a quick and easy way to make your own template. So let's go back here into Easel, and I'm going to go ahead and just make a new project just to get a clean slate. All right. I don't know why my window always wants to do that, but over here. And one ornament that I was thinking about making for my in-laws was a ornament that says Maui on it with a palm tree. And we took a trip with them to Hawaii this year, and we had a really great time. And my husband and I, we always buy ornaments from all the places that we visit. But unfortunately, we were having so much fun in Hawaii that we neglected to purchase an ornament from Hawaii. So I figured I could make an ornament for us to hang on our Christmas tree, and I could also give one to my in-laws. So this is a really good way to make a personalized ornament exactly the way that I'd like it to look. I tried playing around with the design a little bit in the circle shape, but I had a little bit of trouble doing that. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a square. So today I'm going to show you how to make a square template. You can use this exact same concept for making any size, any shape template that you want, any kind of an outline that you want to make. But I'll just use the square to show you a little bit about how to make it your own template in case you want to keep an easel file in the future and be able to just have access to that. So I'm going to start out like I did. I made a square. I'm not too concerned about the size right now because I can always change it once I combine it later. So now that I have the square, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy and paste this square. You can use the keyboards on your you can use the keyboard shortcuts if you know those. If not, you can always go in here, do copy, and then go ahead and paste again. So now I've got my 2 squares, but I need this square to be a little bit smaller than the first one. So I'm just going to guess, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to put this square on top, but I need to make this square white. Remember we were talking about with that different dimensions and the way that Easel renders certain things. Anything that is black or gray will render as a tool path, but anything is white that will not be carved out. But as we just went over in our at the end of our last ornament that we made, because we're going to convert everything to outlines, it's important that we work with fills for right now. If you try to combine elements that are fills, you'll be able to successfully create the template. But if you try to combine elements that are already outlines, it won't render correctly and you won't be able to get the kind of design that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to stick with everything still being a fill. I'm going to select both these shapes here, and I'm going to use our alignment tools to make sure that that inner square is perfectly centered inside my template. So now I know that everything is perfectly aligned, nice and straight. And now I need to add the top part where my hole is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. But you can see my problem is that my white square is already underneath my circle. So I'm going to click on this white square. I'm going to go ahead and use this feature called Bring to Front. What that's going to do is that's going to make sure that that white square is on top of every other element that I have on my background. So now that that's there, I got to make sure I add the hole in as well. So I'll make a little tiny hole for me to hang my ornament on. I'll go ahead and do that. And again, I'm going to make it white. And I'm going to use my alignment tools again, just to make sure everything is nice and centered. And there's my template. Now if I go ahead and combine this, you can see now I have a template exactly like the one that we provided to you, except that it is square. And you can also do this with stars or triangles. You could even try playing around with some of the icons. You could use the tree, make your own tree ornament as well. There's a lot of different options for what you can do with this. Maybe the heart would make a nice ornament shape. So you can play around with making your own templates just by laying shapes on top of each other and making sure to knock out that inner part by making that top shape white. So just for kicks, I'm going to show you guys the Maui ornament that I ended up making. And this is what I ended up coming up with. I kind of threw a palm tree in there, just a little Hawaiian flair, and I added the Maui text in the background. You can see a couple things that I had to think about here. I had to make sure all my letters were combined. The Lavenderia font is really nice for this because it will connect all the letters aside from capital letters. So the capital letter M here, I did have to use the Exploder app. I broke apart the word Maui, and then I was able to push everything together so that the M and the A were connected. And I also added this palm tree in the background, and I made sure that all the elements were connected to the edges, and I even tried to connect the M and the palm tree together so that it was more of a cohesive pattern. And that way it just makes it a little more sturdy when it goes to carve out. So you can see now, if I go and I combine these all, there's my shape, and I'll go ahead and set it to outside cuts, and that's gonna be what my project looks like. Go ahead and do that. And there's an ornament that I can now carve out to hang on my own Christmas tree and give one to my in-laws as well. So we had a little bit too much fun here at the office making ornaments. We've been on a bit of an ornament making craze lately. And what I'd like to show you is we have an entire forum article dedicated to how to sharing your ornaments with us. So if you go on the Inventables website, you can click up here to go to forum, or you can go discuss.inventables.com. Go in here to projects. And if you scroll down, you can see the holiday ornament template. Fast and easy gift idea, because it is. And you can see we've shown some pictures like the ornaments I was showing you guys today. There's Scott's ornament. Here's an ornament I made. I made a template that allowed me to hang bells and things down into it. And I also, that was inspired. This is my post here. I love the movie It's a Wonderful Life. I just think it's such a great holiday movie. Every time I see it, I have to watch it once a year. Could probably watch it every day, but I try to hold back. And so I wanted to make an ornament that had bells ringing for Zuzu and Clarence. And so I added these bells to my ornament. And then I also found this little Grinch mini ornament, and I just thought that would be fun to hang in there with the bells as well. You can see our friend Valerie, she made this ornament for her parents. Jules worked on making this Voronoi tree. This is actually pretty cool. If you scroll down, you can see how it finished. She did just engraving on this part, so it exposed the second layer of plywood. Our friend John made this one for one of his friend's children who's celebrating their first birthday this year. And it's just a really cool way to see what people do. I tried making this one for my husband. He's a big baseball fan. So I would encourage you guys, if you do make an ornament, please, please, please share it on the forum. We love to see how people are using the template and just see all the different ideas out there. There's really no limitation to what you can do with a holiday ornament, and everyone's got their own personal story to tell, and ornaments are a really good way to do that and to really showcase that personality that we have in all of our family members and all the people that we really care about. So if you have any questions, again, please feel free to add those to the Q&A chat on the side of the room, or the side of the video screen. I'll just show you again. This is one of the materials that we have in our shop that's really cool. It's this metallic glitter acrylic. Definitely check that out. You can buy that in our store. It comes in a couple different colors. I know we have red and green, which are good festive colors as well. And again, this was made with that Voronoi app that you can find the same place that we located the Exploder app. There's a couple cool apps in there you might want to check out and see what you can do with those apps and the different ideas that you have. Again, plenty of fonts. You can also import images. You can import family photos if you want to do a family photo on one of your ornaments. Really, there are no limitations to what you can do with making these projects. It doesn't sound like there are any questions right now, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Again, my name is Mo. I work here at Inventables in the Customer Success Department. If you have any questions about this tutorial or about any of the other tutorials that we've done so far, feel free to reach out to us at help@inventables.com, and we will be able to answer your questions that way. If you have any other concerns, or if you see something in this video that you'd like more information about too, I'm sure you can find some more information in our support center. We have some good tutorials in there that talk about using Easel and getting started using the program. Again, I appreciate you guys for checking this out. We are still trying to figure out, if these tutorials are something that people are interested in. So your feedback, both good and bad, is really greatly appreciated. And if you have any questions, again, we're here to help. I hope everyone has a happy holidays, and we hope to do this again sometime. Thanks for joining us.